They're saying that the smear campaign is still going on.
Blake Lively's legal war against Justin Baldoni spiraled into total chaos, exposing her manipulative tactics and obsession with control.
So Blake Lively's team keep writing the judge, I think probably 3 to 4 times a day at this point.
She faked a smear campaign, harassed law firms, and filed bogus motions just to stay in power.
Because as I said, we definitely know they planted stories about Justin Baldoni, for sure.
I mean, seriously, when did this woman go from a rom-com sweetheart to a legal wrecking ball with a full-blown god complex? Because let me tell you, in June 2025, Blake Lively didn't just take a fall, she launched herself off a cliff. This isn't some misunderstood celebrity moment. This is a courtroom tantrum dressed up in designer heels. Her once pristine image is now buried under layers of lawsuits, rejected motions, public dragging, and the kind of delusion that could win an Oscar. She's not fighting for justice. She's fighting for attention. And it shows.
This is a letter that they wrote. I think this was written yesterday. And they're saying that Justin Baldoni's team is not cooperating with giving them the evidence that they're looking for. They're looking for evidence.
So what kicked this disaster into gear? Well, it all started with her little feud with director Justin Baldoni. Yeah, that guy. The one she now treats like the villain in her soap opera. But instead of resolving things like a grown adult, Blake turned it into a multi-state meltdown. We're talking lawsuits flying across New York, California, Georgia, you name it, she's filed there. It's like she spun a globe and said, where can I harass someone today? She's serving subpoenas like they're party invitations, and the courts are exhausted.
And I'm just going to say it from day one. I don't think she's going to go to trial. I don't think she wants to go to trial. I don't think the purpose of this is to go to trial. I think the purpose of this is to damage Baldoni and get back at him as much as she can, to inflict as much pain on him as possible.
Let's not forget Judge Louis J. Lyman. Poor guy has probably aged 5 years just reading her garbage motions. And just this June, he denied her third motion to compel in 1 week. That's right, 3 losses, 7 days. At this point, even her motions are tired of being submitted.
And every time they're just asking the judge for new favors. I thought this was quite interesting.
The judge basically called her out for turning the courtroom into a circus act. Her whole legal strategy is less about proving anything and more about screaming, "Look at me, I'm still relevant." Honey, this isn't Gossip Girl, it's federal litigation. But she wasn't done embarrassing herself. Nope. Blake decided to take things up a notch by filing a lawsuit through this shell company, Banzan Inc. And get this, it had no named defendants. None. She literally sued no one. Who does that? Like, how much do you have to hate someone or be so far gone mentally that you go to court and scream at the void? And don't even try to say it's strategy. That's not a legal move. That's a public tantrum in PowerPoint format. It's giving middle school girl who didn't get the lead role in the play, not a grown woman with an actual team of lawyers.
This feels very much like a narcissistic injury where she just can't let go and she needs to blame someone else for her mistakes. But all of that to say, I also think that she's abusing the court system.
And through all this mess, one thing becomes clear. Blake Lively isn't some misunderstood genius navigating a tough situation. No, she's just a manipulator who's losing grip and trying to spin the fall as a jump. She's not out here defending herself. She's throwing spaghetti at courtroom walls, hoping something sticks. It's not.
They're saying that the smear campaign is still going on. So Blake Lively's team was asking for communication going over a much longer period of time than what actually Baldoni's team have been offering them. They're saying that they can give them communications from June 2024 to December 2024.
But it gets even better. Let's talk about the PR mess she created and then tried to blame on everyone else. Ends with us red carpet premiere is happening and everyone suddenly notices Justin Baldoni is missing. Gone. And within days, TMZ and the Daily Mail magically publish fat-shaming and inappropriate kiss stories that just happen to make Blake look like a saint. Total coincidence, right?
Like I said before, who planted that story that Blake Lively was fat-shamed? Who was at that meeting knowing about what was going on? That was a meeting that took place in Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' apartment. And there were very few people there. So, of course, it was someone from Blake Lively's team.
Except, wait, those leaks allegedly came from her own apartment meeting. Yep. Sources say she and her inner circle were the ones feeding this stuff to the press, setting up the exact headlines that would protect her fragile image. But instead of taking responsibility, Blake turned around and accused Baldoni's team of waging a smear campaign. Girl, you're not the victim here. You're the one holding the match and the gasoline.
None of them have given Blake Lively's team what they want so far. I'm thinking that they have everything that they need from Jennifer Abel. They did actually take her phone and everything that was on there, so what they're looking for now.
And you want to know how deep the delusion goes? She even tried to rope Baldoni's lawyer into the conspiracy. Like, imagine being so lost in your own fantasy that you think your opponent's legal rep is running a press war against you. No evidence, no receipts, just vibes and victimhood. Meanwhile, her own PR people were feeding tabloids like it was an all-you-can-spin buffet. It's honestly tragic how far removed she is from reality. Now here's where the whole narrative crashes, Jed Wallace. This guy is a crisis PR strategist. Blake says he orchestrated the smear. The only problem? He was hired on August 8th. That's 2 days after the red carpet drama, 2 days after the headlines exploded, and 2 days after Blake's meltdown was already in full swing. So how exactly did he mastermind a PR war that was already over before he joined? He didn't, which means Blake just made it up. She created a whole conspiracy out of thin air because her ego couldn't handle the fact that her own strategy backfired. And instead of learning from that flop, she just doubled down, dragging people through the mud, blaming lawyers, accusing PR consultants, demanding apologies from people who owe her nothing. It's like she's running the world's saddest press tour for her own downfall. She can't even admit that the failure was hers. Nope. Just blames, blames, blames. Anyway, let's move into the legal stunt show she's been running across America. Because you'd think after 1 or 2 court losses, someone might reevaluate. Not Blake. She just goes full speed ahead like a drunk driver at a red light. Her team starts issuing subpoenas across New York, California, Georgia, like a nationwide tour of nonsense. She went after former Wayfarer employees, tried to force private messages out of people who don't even work there anymore, and didn't care one bit about breaking privilege laws. Attorney-client privilege? Blake doesn't believe in it, apparently. She wants to see everything, because if she can't win with facts, she'll just drown everyone in paperwork.
They're basically saying that the Wayfair parties haven't given them enough. They want more. They want to find this evidence. And as I said so many times before.
But here's the twist. Judge Lyman wasn't buying it. He slammed her for filing in the wrong jurisdiction. Said straight up that she and her legal team knew they were abusing the process to harass people. And honestly, that's exactly what it was. Blake isn't trying to get justice. She's trying to confuse the court so much that they think the other side is hiding something. It's all about creating noise and chaos. Like if she can just yell non-compliance loud enough, maybe people will forget that she's the one who lit this dumpster fire in the first place.
The pattern of behavior of people that are just doing this to harass people is to often file a ton of motions, to confuse the judge, to rack up and drive up the costs.
And let's not ignore the Amber Heard vibes here. Blake's whole strategy is cut straight from the same tattered playbook. Weaponize the system, fake the victim narrative, confuse the facts, and hope the public's too distracted to notice. The only difference is, Amber had a better poker face. Blake looks like she's about to snap every time she loses emotion, which at this point is basically weekly. So yeah, this isn't just a bad legal strategy. This is a woman unraveling in front of the world. A desperate power play wrapped in courtroom drama. And if you think this is the end, no. This was just her opening act. Let's talk about the one thing Blake Lively should have learned by now. Don't waive receipts unless you've actually read them. Because when your entire argument hinges on a timeline, and that timeline ends up proving you're full of it, well, that's not just embarrassing. That's delusional. In her amended complaint, Blake confidently claimed that this big, bad smear campaign against her kicked off on August 7th. with Jed Wallace's so-called social combat plan. Bold claim, right? Only problem? Jed Wallace wasn't even involved until August 9th. That's 2 days later. 2 whole days after the media had already gone wild with headlines about fat shaming and that infamous kiss that lingered too long.
There's a lot of reasons and ways she's been misusing the court system, and one of them is through subpoenas. We've already know that she abused the subpoena process, in my opinion, by filing that sham lawsuit, Van Zandt Inc., which sued no one about reputational harm that was caused to her.
So let's do the math together, Blake. If the PR guy you're accusing of masterminding your downfall didn't even show up until the fire was already burning, who exactly are you blaming here? Because that timeline doesn't expose Jed Wallace, it exposes you. It proves you manipulated the narrative, played fast and loose with dates, and expected the rest of us to just nod along. Well, we're not, because this isn't the sisterhood of the traveling pants. It's a courtroom, not a fan club. And speaking of that social combat plan, Blake's legal team waved it around like it was some kind of weaponized conspiracy. But when you look at the actual proposal, it's a $30,000 a month service package from Street Relations designed to help brands respond to negative comments online. That's it. No smear campaigns, no Reddit troll armies, just basic social media crisis management. You know, the kind every influencer with a messy past already has on retainer. It's not an attack strategy, it's digital customer service with a facelift. And yet, Blake still dragged quote 1 into the drama. Quote 1 was the expensive option, $175,000 for a 3 to 4 month blitz involving Reddit threads, full social monitoring, and aggressive fan engagement. And let's be clear, she didn't even buy it. That plan was pitched, considered, and rejected. It never happened. But here she is, pointing to a proposal that was never executed and crying conspiracy. It's like someone reading a restaurant menu and claiming food poisoning because the shrimp could have been bad. Girl, you didn't even order the shrimp. Sit down. But of course, she couldn't resist the urge to leak just enough selective emails to make it look like something nefarious was happening. Her team painted the picture of a dark coordinated plot against her. But when you zoom out, the dates don't line up, the language doesn't threaten her, and the money trail stops before anything even begins. It's like watching someone try to prove a bank robbery by pointing to a shopping list. There's no there. Just her manipulating facts to serve whatever story she's spinning that week. And let's just say it, her lawyers are banking on the public being too distracted or too dumb to notice. But we noticed. And the only person left buying Blake's fantasy is Blake herself. Now, let's get to the real reason this entire mess exists. It's not justice, it's not trauma, and it's definitely not about ethics. It's control. Multiple insiders have confirmed what everyone suspected from day one. Blake didn't just want a star and it ends with us. She wanted to run it. She wanted full creative control, from casting to lighting, and she was already scheming to direct the sequel. This wasn't a passion project. It was a power grab, disguised as art. The tipping point? Justin Baldoni refusing to hand over dailies, the raw, uncut footage from filming. That's when the real conflict exploded. Blake wanted those dailies because they gave her leverage, creative input, the ability to review, control, manipulate. And when Justin said no, suddenly she had grievances. Suddenly there were accusations. Suddenly the entire set was toxic. But let's be real. Sony may have supported her casting, but they didn't control the IP. Wayfarer did, and that meant she was out of luck. No matter how much she kicked, screamed, or sued, she wasn't getting control of the franchise. So what did she do instead? Tried to force it, used the courts, used the press, used emotional manipulation to position herself as the victim of a system that wouldn't let her sit in the director's chair.
There was no smear campaign. So Ryan and Blake are still alleging a coordinated defamation campaign against them involving planting negative stories in the press. So they want the Wayfarer to show their communications with different journalists.
Behind the scenes, she was allegedly throwing legal threats like confetti, demanding creative input on everything from camera angles to set design, treating the shoot like a personal Pinterest board. It wasn't just artistic ambition, it was obsession. And it cost her everything. Because in trying to become the next Reese Witherspoon, Blake Lively ended up becoming a cautionary tale instead. And just when you think it couldn't get messier, here comes the grand finale. The infamous smear campaign that never even existed. Her team tried so hard to connect the dots between Wayfarer, Jed Wallace, and Brian Freridman, hoping to sell a narrative where she was being hunted. But every document, every email, every court statement says otherwise. If anything, the only confirmed smear jobs came from Blake's side, leaking that kiss story, whispering about on-set discomfort, fueling headlines that paint her as a misunderstood victim.
Nothing happened. She made her own choices in this case, and this story blew up. So she has filed a ton of motions to compel. She has filed tons of subpoenas, she's seeking tons of subpoenas. She's trying to get another Jones Works employee that quit, that was involved in the Wayfair account.
Meanwhile, the emails from August 8th and 9 show exactly what Wallace was doing, protecting Wayfarer's investment. He wasn't scheming against Blake, he was doing his job. There was no malicious intent, no threatening language, no backroom plot to take her down. His entire focus was damage control for the studio, not psychological warfare against an actress who can't take criticism. Even the judge chimed in, and this part is delicious. He ruled that the term smear campaign isn't even actionable. Legally, it doesn't mean anything. Public statements, even critical ones, are not defamation unless they're outright lies made with malicious intent. And guess what? Blake's entire argument collapsed under that standard. She has no proof of lies, no proof of intent, just a long trail of receipts that lead right back to her. In her desperate attempt to prove she was being attacked, she accidentally revealed that she was the one throwing the punches. The strategy was simple: scream smear campaign loud enough, long enough, and hope no one checks the facts. But the facts are in. And they don't just sink her case, they expose her playbook. And the worst part? She still doesn't get it. Blake Lively is stuck in a loop of her own making, swinging at shadows, pointing fingers at anyone who won't hand her the crown, and burning bridges faster than she can build new ones. And now, all the receipts she hoped would save her are the exact ones dragging her down. Blake Lively just can't stop losing, in court, in Hollywood, and in public opinion. And at this point, it's not even shocking. It's expected. Her courtroom meltdowns have turned into a running sitcom, except the audience isn't laughing with her. They're laughing at her. And her latest act? Trying to access protected internal investigation files from Wayfair. You'd think someone with a legal team that expensive would understand the concept of attorney-client privilege. But no. Blake barreled into court, demanding access to confidential materials she legally has no right to. The judge didn't just say no, he basically said, "Are you serious?" She tried to argue that Wayfarer waived privilege by referencing their 13th affirmative defense, which claimed they acted appropriately in handling Blake's complaints. So in her mind, that somehow opened the door to every internal conversation, email, and whisper that ever happened inside that office. But once again, the judge shut it down, reminding her that the investigation wasn't even tied to that defense. So she's not only wrong, she's persistently wrong, stubbornly wrong, loudly wrong. And somehow, she thinks repeating the wrong thing with enough tears will turn it into a win. And because that humiliation wasn't enough, Blake thought it'd be a good idea to go after Brian Freridman's law firm. This woman actually subpoenaed the firm, representing Wayfarer, demanding their bank records, emails, and even influencer payments. Like what? What kind of rom-com fever dream is she living in where that makes any legal sense? It's one thing to play dirty, it's another to throw the rulebook out the window and light it on fire. She's not filing motions. She's throwing tantrums in PDF format.
She's now subpoenaing Brian Freridman and his law firm and trying to accuse Brian of being part of the smear campaign. Yep, you heard that. And today a judge in court actually denied her motion to compel. And this denial by the judge I thought was pretty interesting because Blake Lively knew when she filed this motion to compel that The judge had no jurisdiction over this.
Thankfully, Friedman's firm hit back hard with a motion to quash, and let's just say it wasn't polite. They basically accused Blake of harassment, intimidation, and abusing the discovery process for a PR stunt. And they're right, because this has never been about getting justice, it's about keeping herself in the spotlight. It's about dragging people into chaos to distract from her own collapse. One legal analyst didn't even sugarcoat it. They called her whole approach litigation by tantrum, which is honestly generous. She's not litigating, she's flailing. She's unraveling so fast, she's about to leave thread marks on the courthouse floor. But while she's melting down in front of judges, Hollywood is quietly backing away like someone avoiding an unstable ex at a party. The shift in public opinion is brutal and very public. Let's start with Whitney Cummings, who roasted Blake on her podcast in the most accurate takedown yet. She called Blake everyone's messy mom, the one who texts at 2 a.m. and always needs to be the center of attention. And honestly, that's Blake to a T. She's the chaotic energy no one invited, but everyone gossips about afterward. And it's not even mean, it's factual, because Blake has turned every red carpet, court hearing, and PR statement into a one-woman show starring only herself. Then came the Netflix gut punch. Her Conversations with Courage special was quietly pulled from the July 2nd, 2025 release calendar. No announcement, no explanation, just gone. Like they were trying to delete her from their memory before she embarrassed them any further. That's not just bad optics, that's career euthanasia. And it sends a clear message. Even platforms that once backed her are over it. Sony too has tapped out. They were once her biggest supporters, pushing for her to lead It Ends With Us, despite all the red flags. But now, they've gone silent. No updates, no sequel announcements, no public support. Blake thought she could force their hand with lawsuits and media drama, but what she forgot is that no one in Hollywood wants to be dragged into a personal vendetta disguised as activism. Studios hate mess, and Blake is now radioactive. And the influencers, the entertainment reporters, they're not holding back either. From YouTube commentary to IG Reels, everyone's picking apart her antics. Not because she's powerful, but because she's become laughable. Every headline, every motion, every complaint reeks of vanity and control. And that's what this has always been about. Not justice, not safety, not speaking truth to power. It's about control. Blake thought she could scream, sue, and pout her way into the director's chair. But what she really did was show the world that she's just another diva with too much money and not enough self-awareness. She underestimated Hollywood's tolerance for nonsense. This town will put up with a lot, egos, scandals, feuds, but what it doesn't tolerate is someone who turns everything into a circus, drags her co-workers through the mud, wastes the court's time, and acts like the world owes her something. Blake's mistake was thinking she was untouchable, that she could control the story forever. But the story has flipped, and now she's the villain in her own tale.